So we just got the sales numbers of the Switch 2 between October and December. So we finally know those dreaded holiday sales numbers that everyone has been talking about over the past few weeks. Apparently, before this, it was an absolute failure, one of Nintendo's worst holidays. But it turns out that everyone was wrong, because the Switch 2 is doing quite well. Aside from one game that we'll mention.
Now this, when you mention that game, that is something actually worth being concerned about. And we'll get into it later in the video. But man, let me just tell you this. Waiting to get the results for the Nintendo Switch 2 sales during the Christmas season, well, that itself, for me at least, it was like waking up to Christmas morning. My excitement couldn't be contained. That's why I was still up at 4 AM. Not that I was playing Sonic Racing Cross Worlds or anything crazy like that, but we finally got them.
Yeah.
It was last night we got the big news. You gave me a call and I was expecting somewhere along the lines of possibly 13 million, because there was so much talk about the disappointing sales for the holiday season. I expected something along the lines of that, but no. Almost 18 million is great. It's sold about 17.3, so if you were to round it, closer to 17 million, but still.
Yeah.
That is a lot better than I ever expected, and honestly, if Nintendo is considering this a disappointing holiday season, they've become egotistical. Just pretty much at this point, watch the Grammys if you like Nintendo, if you just want to watch an egomaniac fest. Oh man, I watched the Grammys for the first time with my girlfriend, and let me tell you, I can't think of things I'd rather do less than watch the Grammys, outside of maybe watching videos about the Nintendo Switch 2 sales numbers that aren't after a recent report.
Yeah. Let's try not to be as boring as those videos discussing sales. Let's try to spruce things up a little bit and actually make a video about sales that is kind of fun and interesting. But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. What's really interesting about this isn't so much the sales for the Nintendo Switch 2 system itself, rather it's for the games and the potential for some of the futures of the series. The good news is, I think most series are gonna be fine. The bad news is, there is one game that has not sold very well, and it's so weird because, we'll get into it, but I don't know whether or not to like root for it not selling well, or be sad about it not selling well.
Yeah.
But the thing with sales videos is that I think they're totally fine. It's just when they're excessive, they're a problem. And the thing is, I will give Nintendine props, because I know that he had the caricature you made in his recent thumbnail, and that was hilarious.
Yeah.
But mad respect for him. He said that he was wrong about the sales numbers. He didn't try to twist it into anything. Damn.
Yeah, I definitely respect
I just have a lot of respect.
That. Yeah. And another thing that I think that's worth mentioning, even though we're kind of past the Switch 1's days and everything, we didn't get an update on Switch 1 sales as well, since it now sold 155.37 million units, which actually puts it above the DS now, making it like Nintendo's best-selling system ever. I'm not sure if it surpassed that in the previous like sales reports, but it's kind of solidified now, and it's also approaching the PS2. I'm not sure if it will surpass the PS2, because the Switch 2 is kind of replacing the Switch 1. I would say it's basically replacing it, but it is getting up there.
I would say there's still a chance.
Yeah, because we are getting...
Because with the sales data, we're looking at it, and I'm seeing that people are still buying Nintendo Switch 1 games.
Yeah, and the Switch 1 is kind of like... Even though the price did go up a while ago, it still is and nowadays, compared to most like video game consoles releasing and those prices, the Switch 1 is still a fairly budget console nowadays. So I do think it is still a cheaper option compared to most things out there, which could contribute to the sales, and it could surpass the PS2 at some point. Or Sony might find some hidden PS2 sales out of nowhere, and then it jumps up to 165 million overnight. Who knows? But
all Nintendo would need to do is just like make the Switch Lite $100 for Black Friday and bundle it with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Then they would overtake the PS2.
But I wanted to get into...
But looking at the sales themselves, just for the Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World specifically, now those sales are, yes, they're a lot higher than I expected, but with all things considered, it lines up. I knew that Mario Kart World was going to have an insanely high attach rate, considering that it's $50 and you could get it with the Switch 2.
Yeah.
Most people weren't paying $80 for it. And with Pokemon Legends Zaza that was also bundled, I'm glad that more people made the good decision to get Mario Kart World instead. But we did learn something about Zaza, and that's that the Switch 2 version sold about 4 million, which isn't too bad, but the Switch 1 version sold over 8 million.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was because the Switch 1 version is kind of like the cheaper one on store shelves, and like just the cheaper one overall, and also the fact that like there are much more Switch 1s out there than Switch 2s, which I feel like is partially why like the Switch 2 version has lower sales. So I think like that might shift over time, like as the Switch 2 becomes like more prioritized among like most general audiences. I just feel like it kind of makes sense in year one that the Switch 1 version would sell more just because it's like on both systems and the Switch 1 was like insanely successful and popular. So I think those numbers kind of make sense to me. And then looking at Mario Kart World, I feel like that high attach rate, like you said, definitely makes sense. And I would say with those sales numbers of 15 million or nearly 15 million in less than a year, I feel like that kind of solidifies that game as a heavy hitter. And I know there's a lot of discussion from various YouTubers out there about how the Switch 2 doesn't have a heavy hitter, but I would absolutely say that nearly 15 million is heavy hitter territory. Like, this game is definitely gonna sell like 30 plus million in the Switch 2's lifespan. I would say maybe even like 40 or 50 million, depending on how much the Switch 2 sells. Like, if the Switch 2 sells like 100 million, I could definitely see Mario Kart World still being like really popular. Maybe not as popular as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, as that kind of coincided with the success of the Switch 1, and I don't think the Switch 2 will sell as well as the Switch 1. It might get close, but I think like just due to various factors, it might kind of, by the end of the Switch 2 era, I'm guessing it might be in, like, the 120 million range. That's kind of, before my guess was, like, 75-ish million, but I'm definitely kind of increasing that now, just due to how well it's selling. But I'm thinking Mario Kart World might not surpass Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I think it will still sell insanely well, based on the numbers that we know.
I'm expecting the Switch 2 to sell 100 million units when all is said and done, if not 90 million. But with Mario Kart World, it's essentially a pack-in game, so that makes sense, and Nintendo said they're gonna discontinue the bundle, but I mean, if they're smart, they just keep it available because it's selling really well. And the thing with Mario Kart World is that it is a little bit of a polarizing game, but I feel like the update with the custom items just breathed new life into the game. I've been enjoying it a lot more ever since. I actually did a round of Knockout Tour with T&D today, where we just chose the absolute worst items. The coin, the blooper, the gold shell, only items like that. And it was hilarious. But I just think Nintendo needs to keep the momentum up. I think DLC should happen.
Oh yeah. Have you heard about the
sooner than later too?
Yeah, the Team Knockout Tours that they added? That was like another update that they did recently. But I think that was a pretty cool addition. I think like the updates they've been doing for Mario Kart World are pretty interesting. They may not be new content, but I feel like they are like definitely improving the game quite a lot, especially like with custom items and things. But I'm quite enjoying Mario Kart World.
I'd like if they handled it like Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, where they had new content pretty much monthly, and they'd have events. And if you guys play Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, you guys excited for the Tangle and Whisper event? I am so excited to just get all those tickets and get all the auras. I feel like Mario Kart World would definitely benefit from something like that. Like, let's say they had an event to coincide with Bonanza's release. Or if they had an event to coincide with Mario Tennis Fever that include Baby Wario and Waluigi as characters. They're
Yeah.
not doing that. That'd just be something really cool they could do.
And also,
However, if they do drop DLC, preferably free, that would be great.
Also, since you mentioned Tangle and Whisper for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, I feel like the Mario Kart equivalent for that would be Mario RPG characters. Like, imagine if they did like a promotion for like Thousand Year Door and Brothership alongside like either free updates or a Switch 2 edition for like both of those games. That would be really cool as well. But there's definitely a lot of potential.
So weird. With Nintendo, they're willing to promote their new games, and out of all games, Super Mario Run. I get it's a mobile game and that the mobile market is huge, but Super Mario Run, it's barely a drop of water in the ocean, Nintendo-wise. I don't know why they don't just promote their new games within Mario Kart World or something like that. It would just make more sense. Now, even if they just kept the Mario theming, they could still do that. Just have them be like Mario, Donkey Kong themed. We get lots of Mario games. They wouldn't run out of material.
Yeah, you literally have like thousands upon thousands of Mario characters. Just look at the Mario wiki. There's like so many random characters. They could just like pick like a character from like Hotel Mario or something like that. Like they could literally, or Mario's Time Machine. There's like so much to choose from. Though I feel like it would take them like literal centuries to get through all of the characters in the Mario franchise. But I feel like we've talked enough about Mario Kart World. But I wanted to get into some other games.
Turns out one thing though. Turns out people really do like French fries.
Oh, that's true. I definitely like myself some French fries, but
the numbers don't lie. I like French fries too.
But
I also like banana flavored fries.
So Donkey Kong Bonanza sold 4.25 million. Like, I would say I'm kind of neutral on this one. I feel like it may seem low, but I think the only reason why Mario Kart World is so incredibly high is because of the fact that it was bundled with the Switch 2. 4.25 million after about half a year, I wouldn't say that's too bad, especially considering the fact that this will be an evergreen title, and I feel like it will probably sell like triple, if not quadruple this in its lifetime. I'm definitely expecting this game, like, when everything is said and done with the Switch 2, to be at, like, maybe, like, 15 to 20 million, I'm thinking. Because I think, like, Bonanza seems like a game that Nintendo will continually promote over the years. So I think, like, this is just the start, and I think it's just the start of Nintendo's push for Donkey Kong. Like, right now, it may seem low, but actually I would say 4.25 million isn't actually that bad for Donkey Kong.
The thing with Donkey Kong Bonanza is that initially I was a little concerned with the sales numbers because it didn't sell that much more. It was at like 4 million the last quarter, and now it's only like 4.25 million. But the thing is, it was similar with Breath of the Wild. I talked to Uncle Al a little bit about it and asked him, are you concerned about the future of Donkey Kong? And he pointed out that when Breath of the Wild launched, and in 2017, the sales numbers were similar. And since this is an evergreen title, this is a game that's going to continue to sell for years to come. This is a system seller right here.
Yeah.
This is actually the game that you need to get if you have a Switch 2. If you were to only get one Switch 2 game, this would be the one to get. But in terms of Donkey Kong, I think that this is only the beginning, and that the sales numbers now, nothing to be concerned about.
Yeah.
And the future is looking really bright for Donkey Kong. He got nominated for Game of the Year. The game itself got universal acclaim. It brought back the series in the best way possible. I'd say it's the best series revival I've ever seen. I'd say it was quite a success.
Yeah,
you wouldn't even say a bonanza.
Yeah, and I feel like this game is also on track to like become one of the, or like the best-selling game of the series. Because I think, like, most of the other Donkey Kong games sell, like, between, like, 3 million and 7 million, I would say, kind of, like, around that range. I forgot what the best-selling one was. I don't think it topped, like, 10 million in terms of, like, sales on the system that it was for. Because I think, like...
It was Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, I think
over
it was...
9 million on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, 9 million. I feel like Donkey Kong Bonanza could definitely surpass that within this year, I would say. I think it will definitely be around, like, 10-ish million by the end of 2026, I would say, in terms of, like, just Nintendo promoting it, or maybe like next holiday it gets like a sale during Black Friday or something like that. So I feel like it's definitely on track to being the best selling game in the series, and I feel like it probably will. But like 4.25 million, I would say that's pretty good for a brand new console with the game not being bundled into it at all. So I think that's
excellent. The thing with Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I'm just gonna be real, some series do not have mass appeal, and they'll always remain somewhat obscure, but Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo was one of the best-selling games on the system, and succeeding games have sold very well. It's one of the most iconic series out there. This isn't Nintendo bringing back something obscure like Advance Wars. This is only the beginning, and things are looking great. I can't say the same for another series, though, but we'll get there.
Yeah, but before that, we have another game that I want to talk about. Honestly, one of my favorite Switch 2 games. I would say my second favorite behind Donkey Kong Bonanza. And I've been absolutely addicted to this game. I think I have over 70 hours in it, and I play it almost every day. But it's Kirby Air Riders. And this sold 1.76 million, almost 2 million. I wouldn't be surprised if it hit 2 million at this point. But I would say that's pretty good for Kirby. And keep in mind, this is a Kirby spin-off, and most Kirby spin-offs have not topped 2 million. So the fact that it's on track to kind of sell past 2 million and be an evergreen title, I think that's pretty good for this game. I feel like this will probably sell around for the 5 million in its lifetime. So I definitely think this game has appeal. It may seem like it's pretty niche, like in the grand scheme of things, but I would say this game does seem to be selling pretty well, especially in Japan, but even outside of Japan, it has decently good sales. But I would definitely say Kirby Air Riders is doing pretty well, and it actually outsold Sonic Racing Cross Worlds from the sales of Cross Worlds that we know so far. I know the sales are a little bit outdated, but from what we know, Cross Worlds sold 1 million, but I kind of doubt that it like sold up to 2 million by like the end of December 2025. So I have a good feeling that Kirby Air Riders is still probably in the lead over Cross Worlds at this point, which is kind of crazy.
Now
like,
that is shocking.
Cross Worlds was pretty big, and like I would definitely say it was kind of mainstream online when it released. And for a Kirby spin-off to outsell it is kind of huge, honestly.
That is pretty huge, and I will say, Kirby Air Riders is a game that's niche in the sense where it doesn't have the mass appeal like something like a 3D Mario game would have, like for the holiday season, but with all things considered, those sales numbers are pretty good for what is a very niche racing game. It's totally different from any other racing game, and it's something that you're either into or you're not interested in. But I've loved playing Kirby Air Riders. It's a great game. And I will say this, do you think Nintendo's strategy of like pushing out games that are a little more obscure is working and like getting people to play them? Because what they're doing is they're releasing more obscure games as like premiere releases instead of like the huge mass appeal games. Like I know Donkey Kong is not an obscure series, but they did a 3D Donkey Kong instead of a 3D Mario game.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool if you ask me. And with Kirby Air Riders just positioning that as a holiday title, I feel like that got people interested who might not have considered it before.
Yeah, I think it's definitely working out for them so far with what we're seeing with these sales, because these definitely are going to sell like a lot better like over the course of the Switch 2 generation. And I feel like they're trying to make more heavy hitter franchises to supplement things like 3D Mario, Zelda, Smash, and Pokemon. I feel like they're kind of elevating Donkey Kong and Kirby up to that status. It really seems like it. When you even look at like other Nintendo things that are kind of like releasing, like Nintendo's strategy of kind of expanding upon like what gamers can experience like outside of the games, like either Nintendo Alarmo, Nintendo Today, stuff like that. There's like themes for Kirby and Donkey Kong doesn't have a theme on Nintendo Alarmo yet, but Kirby has a theme on both of them. And then we have the Donkey Kong theme park as well, and Kirby has like the Kirby Cafe. That has existed for a while, but it's like both Kirby and Donkey Kong, it seems like Nintendo is positioning them to be their next heavy hitter franchises. I feel like by the end of the Switch 2 era, like maybe like 7-ish years from now, we'll say, oh, we need a big new Kirby game. We need a big new Donkey Kong game. It's gonna be like how people are saying with 3D Mario or Smash now. I feel like that's what Nintendo is positioning Kirby and Donkey Kong to be. And I feel like these games are definitely... the fact that they're evergreen titles is definitely going to help, and their sales so far is definitely helping, as well as like sales of Kirby and the Forgotten Land a few years ago, which sold like 7 to 8 million. So I definitely feel like these two franchises are in a good spot right now, so Nintendo could have more to their lineup to supplement the other heavy hitter titles.
Yeah, I would say that you could also throw Pikmin in there, because Nintendo's been pushing Pikmin too.
Yeah.
When Nintendo is pushing a series to like be one of their big series, it's apparent. It's not like a one and done thing like, unfortunately, Kid Icarus Uprising seemed to be. No, with Donkey Kong, they fully redesigned the characters, they're pushing forward, they're doing the themes. Yeah, they're doing a lot for Donkey Kong, Kirby, and Pikmin, and I love to see it. And the thing is, if you just think about it, does it really matter if they have Kirby Air Riders as like the holiday title? Does it matter unless you're Nintendo trying to make as much money as possible? Because honestly, it's just like with the sales for like the holiday season, they were pretty good, but if Nintendo expected them to be even better, I think that the 3D Mario would have done that. But I like their output, and I like that they're pushing games to gain new audiences.
Yeah, the only thing with
stuff that people wouldn't usually play until now.
The only thing with 3D Mario, though, is that I feel like that would have been a bit weird in the same year as Bonanza and Mario Kart World. I think Nintendo kind of gave both those two games some breathing room, and I feel like it definitely helped for Mario Kart World, because, well, due to both being in the bundle, and also just being like a Mario Kart title that ended up selling pretty well. The Bonanza also had some breathing room as well, did like get a good start. So I think like stuff like 3D Mario, Luigi's Mansion, like other big titles for us to expect will probably be in the next like 2 years, I would say. I think like these, like I think they just gave this like holiday season like some breathing room for these new titles, but I think like the next couple holiday seasons, I feel like we'll definitely see some pretty big titles. I'm definitely expecting that with kind of how Nintendo is positioning things.
Yeah, I expect that too. But before we wrap things up, you know, the sales have been pretty good, for the most part, that is. Yes, I wish Donkey Kong Bonanza sold more, but it's my favorite game of all time. Everything else, to be expected. But this one, man,
we have
knowing who the director was, I know this is a heated topic for you.
Yeah, or technically the producer, but we have a Miles McKenzie shaped elephant in the room with Metroid Prime 4. If you're looking through the sales charts here with all the games, see Mario Kart World, Bonanza, Pokemon, Kirby Air Riders, all the Switch 1 stuff, but there's a glaring omission from all of this, and that is Metroid Prime 4. Nintendo only includes games in these sale charts if they sell at least 1 million, because Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition didn't make it onto any of the ones from last year, unfortunately, so that game likely didn't sell 1 million within the first like couple weeks that it was out. But another Metroid Prime 4 is another example of that. But I feel like Prime 4 is definitely a much bigger blunder to not sell like 1 million. That game was in development, well, like, at least with Retro Studios, for like 7 to 8 years. And like we were waiting for it for like 8.5 years, and like only for it to release, and I kind of liked it. Like I feel like it had some good qualities, but it was kind of messy. But it was not a universally acclaimed game. It was like definitely a bit less popular and much more divisive than other Metroid games. Maybe not as divisive as Other M, but still up there, I would say. But man, I feel like the fact that it didn't even sell 1 million kind of solidifies this game's legacy as having an absolute dumpster fire, a generational dumpster fire of a launch. Like, I was predicting it would at least sell like maybe like 1.2, 1.3, something a little underwhelming, but no, it didn't even sell 1 million, which is kind of insane. Now, to be fair, they do split up sales between the Switch 2 edition and Switch 1 edition, so there is a possibility that it could have sold 1 million with those combined, but the fact that they didn't even show it in the sales charts at all isn't a good sign. Because it's almost like Nintendo is not proud of those sales, and they did not feel comfortable sharing them here.
Yeah! Where do I even begin? Okay, I gotta say, with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, I think this might just be one of the most disastrous Nintendo games that ever released. First of all, when it was revealed, I don't even think it started development. This was just Nintendo's way of, like, making confidence for the Switch era to, like, get consumers in. Because a year before Metroid Prime Federation Force happened, people loathed that game, and they wanted a new Metroid Prime game. Nintendo announces Metroid Prime 4, just the logo, says nothing about it until the final year of the Nintendo Switch. We see it for the first time, it looks pretty good. But then they're just silent about it, and just, like, it goes completely under the radar. And at first you're thinking, okay, there are just a lot of other games for them to talk about. But then it goes on longer, and eventually we realize that it would have quippy characters like Miles McKenzie. Look, the thing is, one of my favorite movies is Cat in the Hat 2003, because the whole movie, that is not what a Cat in the Hat movie should be like. So characters like Miles McKenzie, I kind of find them hilarious, because they're completely out of place.
Yeah.
But if I was a die-hard Metroid fan, and this is what I got after such a build-up, so many disappointments, and now the future of the series is in question again, man.
Yeah, I think, like, well, I think 2D Metroid might be fine right now, because, like, I think we'll probably get, like, Metroid 6, like, within the next, like, couple years, I would say, because Dread sold well. But I don't think we're gonna see another Prime game for quite a while, honestly. Like, it's, like, I don't like, I've seen some people be a bit...
man, it's such a bummer.
I've seen some people a bit worried about Retro Studios, but I think Nintendo is probably gonna have Retro Studios do something else. Like, probably smaller scale projects for this foreseeable future, honestly. But another
Just make
thing...
a new Wario game.
Another thing...
Or even go back to Donkey Kong.
When you're talking about the reveal way back in 2017 when they showed the logo, I remember I was seeing, like, Arlo's reaction to it, like, way back. Like, because I watched I've been watching Arlo since that time, and I just remember how excited he was, and he, like, flipped out over that logo. I feel so bad for him now with how that game turned out. Man, like, I would never wish that upon any fan base, honestly. And that's coming from someone...
I would not wish that upon any fan base either.
That's coming from someone...
Except for maybe the Pokemon one.
Yeah, and that's coming from someone who was a part of the Paper Mario fan base and experienced a lot of divisive titles there. But yeah... Yeah, Metroid Prime 4.
I've yet to beat the game, but the impression I got from playing it is that it's a game that feels stuck in 2016. There's no fast travel, you can't save anywhere, and the structure itself is very linear. It doesn't feel as open as the original Metroid Prime. It's just overall the game itself. At best, it's fine. And there are aspects that are good about it. Music's great as always. Visually, game looks good as well. But there are other aspects to it that just bring it down, that it's not an incredible experience, even if it's just not downright bad.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just like, I'm speaking as an outsider, someone who's very casual into Metroid. And when you brought up Metroid Dread, yes, that game sold very well, but Metroid Dread was also universally considered a great game. This is a lot more polarizing, and unfortunately, I feel like it wasn't due to a lack of competency. This was just a very troubled development. It started off development by Bandai Namco Singapore developing the game. Then, the game itself is such a mess that Retro has to take over the project, but they don't start it from scratch. They have to salvage what the other developers made, and it's just a train wreck. All produced by Kensuke Tanabe.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, I feel like this game, surprisingly at this point, is not quite as divisive as Metroid Prime 4, but still very divisive within the fan base. But it reminds me quite a lot of Paper Mario the Origami King, because I felt the game that was good, I would say even great in its own right, but for a longtime fan of the series, it wasn't exactly what they were asking for. I think Metroid Prime 4 feels very similar to that in a lot of ways, and the fact that Kensuke Tanabe was involved with both is, like, honestly kind of funny. I could definitely see the parallels there. And while I do wish him the best in his retirement, and I don't have anything against him as a person, I feel like he definitely had some misguided decisions when it came to his later games, like post-2010 games that he worked on. And I'm not, like, I don't think Tanabe was to blame for all of Prime 4's issues. I think there was a lot of different things going on between the fact that they salvaged the old project and had a million ideas going around. But I feel like Tanabe's just like, I feel like whatever he brought to the game kind of just like threw in like another thing into the mix and made things even more confusing. Because I think like he
really wanted that Galactic Federation, and that Galactic Federation is exactly what you got. But you know what? Regardless of whether or not he was like the main cause behind why the game turned out the way it did, I don't think he was. I think it was due to all of the factors and just the troubled development. Tanabe is kind of known to have the Midas touch of crap. Anytime he touches a series, he does things to make things mad. Paper Mario, Chibi Robo Ziplash, and now his swan song of crap is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. What a poetic way to retire from Nintendo. I couldn't imagine a better way for Tanabe to retire. That is poetic right there.
Yeah, I just like, I feel like it's kind of unfortunate that like the Prime series is just kind of in jeopardy again, because like I remember like earlier last year, like we all like were kind of like we kind of had an idea that, oh, Prime 4 is gonna be amazing, it's gonna be the best game in the series, because it seemed like it was on track to be like most of the other games that released throughout the Switch generation. Like games that were kind of like the Breath of the Wild or the Mario Odyssey, or now the Donkey Kong Bonanza of the series. It like almost seemed like Prime 4 was gonna be one of those games. And I mean, it could have been, but like, I don't know. It just
wasn't.
Yeah, it just seemed like
If it was that, I think it would have made a lot bigger of a splash.
Yeah.
But there were just so many factors going against it, and there was also this. By the time it released, it was almost like 10 years ago that the game was revealed. The game itself is just fine at best. It's nothing groundbreaking like Donkey Kong Bonanza, pun intended. So then the game releases, and not only that, it releases in the worst possible month with like little to no marketing. They just drop it in December and just like don't care about it.
Yeah, I think
it just says a lot that Nintendo wasn't very confident in this game, and you know, considering how long it took and for the game to just be fine, it's just like not many people are talking about it, the sales were low, and unfortunately it's like I don't think Nintendo will be making a Metroid Prime game anytime soon. And if they do, hopefully they learn. But I also said, oh, they'd never make a Paper Mario game like Color Splash. That game sold poorly. They'd never take inspiration from that Origami King. Now, to be fair, Origami King's an excellently designed game, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I would say, though, the Nintendo of today is kind of a bit different than the Nintendo of the late Wii U, early Switch 1 generation. It seems like now they are at least a bit more aware of what fans want, considering the fact that we got like a revival of Donkey Kong, revival of the Mario RPGs and Kirby Air Riders and stuff like that, like things that aren't like quite the heavy hitters that a lot of fans have been wanting. So I am hoping that Nintendo will learn the right lessons from this and improve in actually like reconsider kind of putting like a little more thought into the next Metroid Prime game and like kind of realizing that if the low sales and the mixed reception of the game wasn't just due to like Metroid Prime in general, it was just due to the circumstances of that game. I'm a little hopeful because it seems like Metroid Prime 4, with the way that game turned out, felt like an outlier in an otherwise consistently good lineup from Nintendo.
Yeah, I would say it's more of an outlier than anything, and just all things considered, the game just had a very troubled development. And like I said, this is a case where I'm not sure whether to root for the game not doing well, because it's just like not as good as it could have been, or to be upset because it's like now the future of the series could be in jeopardy, but it's like they just got to take the right lessons from it. The thing is, not every situation's like a Chibi Rebel Ziplash situation where the game is completely different and then fans are told, okay, if you don't like this new direction, then the series is dead. That is frustrating right there. With Metroid, I think that it has enough recognition for the Prime Series to eventually continue. I just don't think Nintendo would be in a rush for it. And if they were to bring it back, I feel like by that time, they definitely have their Bonanza, Odyssey, or Breath of the Wild moment for Metroid. Like, at this point, you can't have another disappointing game.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they'll go back to the drawing board for Metroid, at least with Metroid Prime. I feel like 2D Metroid is in good hands right now, but like I feel like with Metroid Prime, I feel like I'm hoping they'll like do something like to kind of improve the reputation of the series and just like improve various things like that. But we need a Metroid game to unite the community. But anyways, I think that's most of what we have to talk about in terms of sales and things. I feel like we touched on most things here. And like, just in general, I feel like the Switch 2 is selling a lot better than we expected. Like, a lot of the Doomer-ish videos just ended up being kind of rage bait, or just like, this videos that get clicks, or just, it kind of... I'm not even just referring to like one person. I'm referring to like just the Nintendo sphere in general, not even just like the Grifter-esque channels, just like in general, that whole, even some of the channels that I liked were kind of dooming about the sales. It just seemed like all of that was kind of manufactured discourse. It seemed they really didn't definitively know how well the Switch 2 was selling, so it didn't really seem like there was much grounds for all of that discussion about sales across all of Nintendo YouTube.
It just seemed like it was all for nothing, and the thing is, it's not just like, yeah, you're right, it's not just a specific creator. Sodium chloride is just a genre of content, and it's just a symptom of this. Nintendo doesn't have many upcoming games that have mass appeal. I like the games that they're putting out, but I know that it's not 3D Mario. But that would change, hopefully very soon. So, Nintendo YouTube. Nintendo, if you're listening, could you give us Nintendo YouTubers a brand new 3D Mario game to talk about? Or just anything of that caliber? Because I don't want to talk about sales numbers ever again.
Yeah, and
until the next report.
And at the very least, a new Luigi's Mansion game. I think we're overdue for one. I would say Luigi's Mansion is pretty solidly a heavy hitter at this point. 3D Mario, Luigi's Mansion...
I'm pretty sure it's not going to take place at McDonald's.
Yeah. But I could talk about my Luigi's Mansion thoughts another day. I actually had an idea about it the next game, kind of having a similar premise to SpongeBob Titans of the Tide. But anyways, I think that's all that we have to talk about. But thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to go subscribe to the Meech, and make sure to subscribe and check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!
And keep calm and da-da on.